All right, let's try this again. So we are live. So we just had a little bit of technical difficulty with the other stream. I'm not really sure exactly what happened. I think we just lost connection or something like that. My YouTube just froze and the stream just cut. I'm not sure what's going on here, but let's try to start this over again. Let me know if you can hear me in the live chat, okay? And we'll go ahead and get started. We've got Cody, Automatic Beats, David Stone. Looks like they jumped back off the other stream. Can y'all hear me okay? Awesome. Perfect. All right, so let's jump into this. So we got a lot to talk about in our stream today. So there is a potential problem brewing on the horizon for Ethereum. Okay, so we have the long anticipated Ethereum merge coming up next month. Okay, and some other things that have come to light that are potentially, look like there could be some choppy waters ahead. So we're going to talk about that, what you have to understand in this video today. As a blockchain developer who works this technology with Ethereum in particular on a daily basis, we're going to look at a lot of the updates that have happened in our live streams yesterday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel. Just subscribe, turn on notifications. You're going to find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to answer some of your questions, take a quick look at the crypto markets, and a whole lot more. So if you're around here, hey, I'm Gregory. On this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to start today. All right, so we got people jumping in the chat. We got Cody, Automatic Beats, Dave Stone, Above Realty, Manny, Robert, Dirk, Yolot. Hope I'm saying that right. Bruno, Cryptology, Ben. Ben tried to get me there. Let's see here. Malcolm, Nate, Bruno, welcome. All right, so let's jump into this. Let's look at a potential problem that's brewing on the horizon for Ethereum. All right, so what is that problem? Well, it's a problem of censorship, okay? So I'm going to talk about how this is the case, what factors are causing this, and why this is such a big deal, because at the end of the day, the whole vision for blockchain technology is to have a censorship-resistant platform. And so the idea of censorship could be a threatening one for Ethereum itself. So let's set the stage for this to talk about, what's going on here and how could this happen. So let's start off with what's going on with the sanctions that are currently happening on the Ethereum network with applications like Tornado Cash, okay? So, within the past couple weeks, we saw some legislation, or I should say, basically some sanctions were placed on Tornado Cash. So what is that? What does that mean? So basically, Tornado Cash, what it is basically a privacy solution for Ethereum. People call it a mixer. So all the transactions you do on Ethereum right now, of course, you do under a pseudonym, which is like your public key, private key pair. It's like your username in the blockchain. It's like 0x, blah, 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 blah. Right, that's your account, and then you have all this history associated with that. And of course, you could disclose who you are, but you don't have to disclose who you are. You're kind of anonymous in that sense, but you can still see your entire transaction history, even if it's tied to that pseudonym. So Tornado Cash is a privacy solution which lets you essentially deposit cryptocurrency into a mixer and withdraw it on the other side, essentially with like a valet claim ticket, and to where the two addresses are not easily linked to one another to help preserve that privacy, so that you could do lots of different things. There's lots of legitimate reasons why you might want to use something like that. Okay, but there's also we've seen a lot of the DeFi exploits, send funds to Tornado Cash, and that's one of the main reasons that they cited the ruling to sanction Tornado Cash. So, we saw this happen within the past couple weeks. We've seen a lot of fallout from this, okay? But basically, we're talking about sanctions that have applied to a piece of code on a blockchain, some smart contracts, some addresses. And of course, this has been something that has, we've never seen before. And of course, we already have some pushback on this. Okay, so basically, we had the Treasury Department, Office of Foreign Asset Control, OFAC. You might have heard the OFAC sanctions. That's what they're talking about there. Designated adding Tornado Cash to specially designated nationals and blocked persons list and its administrator. So basically, we had some pushback on this, saying that this was essentially an overstep, okay, and trying to essentially get this changed to some degree. Now, I don't think that's going to happen quickly if it does. But what does that mean in the meantime? Well, how's this bad for Ethereum? Like, how is this a hard thing? Well, so basically, here's where the hard part comes into play. Of course, we have these sanctions that are applied to smart contracts, which basically, there's a lot of gray area there. But at the end of the day, like I've made videos about this on my channel, like, hey, like be careful, especially if you're American or you're inside the United States. You know, just know what the like you could potentially like go to jail like for using this stuff while this is in effect. Okay, so be careful. But I'm not just talking about that. That's not the problem here. It is a problem, but it's not the problem I'm trying to highlight. Okay. So what I'm trying to highlight is actually the idea of censorship. So how does censorship come into play? Well, you know, right now, Ethereum is undergoing a major change. In about a month, we are switching to proof of stake, okay? So, you know, right now, Ethereum supports mining. So if you're doing anything on the blockchain, you know, we have miners who run the chain. But in a month, you know, if proof of stake goes live when we think it's going to go live, then we're going to replace those miners with validators, okay? And the validators themselves are the ones who include you know, transactions into blocks. And of course, they deposit cryptocurrency into a node in order to do that. That's how they stake it. Essentially, you're staking to act honestly on the network, okay? And so, because there is uncertainty about the OFAC sanctions, okay, you know, at a very basic level, it's obvious that, you know, you're going to be in some hot water if you are a direct user and you have a wallet and you are like depositing funds into these services and withdrawing from the other side. But there's a lot of questions on whether facilitating any of those transactions and in any way would be a failure to comply and therefore be liable. So we've seen things like, you know, some major stable coins blacklist these addresses so that they're not facilitating, you know, transferring funds in between these. We're seeing, you know, major Ethereum node providers like Infura and Alchemy, all right, start to essentially restrict use of these types of things. We've seen DeFi front ends restrict use of actually blacklist addresses who have used any of these services, okay? You know, I'm not necessarily giving any value judgments on the decisions that, you know, private entities have made who have built on top, but there is a problem here that this type of censorship could actually trickle down to the base layer of Ethereum post-merge with Ethereum validators, or the pressure to do this. So what do I mean by that? So, you know, right now, a very large amount of the ETH of the people running validators on, you know, on the Ethereum chain are going to be other people who are essentially staking ETH and offering those services to customers. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So like right now, you know, the only way to natively stake ETH on the network is to buy 32 ETH yourself and then run a computer or a validator that validates these transactions and puts them on the blockchain. And then you earn a passive income for doing that. And then you're actually like running the blockchain. Now, that's a tall order for a lot of people because number one, you have to have 32 Ether. Okay, it's a lot of money. And number two, you have to run a computer and then lock up a lot of money into a computer. So even that's like a daunting task, even if you got the money. And if you got more than 32 Ether, you got to keep stacking validators in increments of 32. Basically, there's also opportunity for people to offer staking services, people who don't want to stake 32 Ether or don't want to run a computer and lock up their own money into it, right? So like you have decentralized staking services like, you know, Lido Finance or, you know, Rocket Pool. Okay. And of course we have centralized exchanges like, you know, Kraken, Coinbase, you know, Binance, et cetera, et cetera. Some of these are United States, some are not. But the question on the table is, so that's the thing. We have a lot of people running validators who are going to be these big players who are either staking ETH for their own purposes or doing it to offer staking services to other people and then having some sort of small, you know, management fee for that service. So the question on the table is, are we going to see pressure to comply with sanctions at the protocol level where basically people who are running Ethereum nodes, all right, validators, are they going to be pressured, especially U.S. operating ones, are they going to be pressured to essentially censor transactions that could potentially happen on chain, and then actually have censorship on the Ethereum protocol, like at the actual node levels. Like we're already seeing some of this with, some of the node providers. That's a different story. That's not actually Ethereum itself. That's just people who are running Ethereum nodes as a service and letting you have a link to them. Okay, but we're actually talking about having censorship at the node level itself, like on the client level, at the base layer of the protocol. Okay. And so that's the real question on the table. That's the real problem that we could see. And really this is kind of like a perfect storm of these sanctions coming down right before the ETH merge, and then this becoming a potential problem after the ETH merge, whenever we have proof of stake and you have this problem, people basically running validators in the US, big players, okay, who might feel the pressure to comply with these things from a sort of corporate standpoint, okay? So what is the answer to this type of thing? Like if this is a problem, what's the solution? Okay, so I saw this poll kind of float around on Twitter yesterday talking about this. So basically the idea was like, question from the Ethereum community: if a majority of stake chooses A in this poll, will you consider censorship and attack on Ethereum and burn their stake via social consensus, or tolerate the censorship? So the question on the table is basically, if regulators ask you to censor at the Ethereum protocol level with your validator, will you comply with the censorship at the protocol level, or shut down the staking service and preserve network integrity? Okay, so that's the question, and we definitely see poll, which just clicks show results here. Of course, an overwhelming majority of people chose X, which is basically consider censorship an attack on Ethereum and burn their stake via social consensus. So I guess before we continue on here, we'll pose the poll to the chat. Okay, so if you were to see this as a part of the Ethereum community, what would you vote to do? Would you vote to essentially consider censorship an attack on Ethereum and burn their stake via social consensus, or would you tolerate the censorship? So let me know down the live chat below. Okay. So basically, of course, we see Vitalik himself voting X in the poll. So what is it? So Ethereum does have the ability essentially to subvert these types of decisions. Okay. So it does have the ability to essentially take basically slash people who are slash and burn people who are not acting honestly in accordance with the desired outcome of the protocol. Okay, so that's what proof of stake is. So think about it this way. If you are like all blockchains have a problem of potentially including bad transactions into blocks and corrupting the blockchain itself. Okay, so let's just say a common example would be like somebody wants to just change their account balance. Okay, let's say you have an Ethereum wallet and you want to have 1 million Ether, right? You want to basically become a billionaire. Okay, so what you would have to do here is you could potentially try to, corrupt the blockchain state, actually include bad transactions into the chain, or maybe even change the history of the chain. That's pretty hard to do. But the whole idea is that you have these other blockchains that are helping achieve consensus of what the state should be. And so on proof of stake, you have to have cryptocurrency locked up to stake in order to validate transactions. The whole idea is if you act dishonestly in any way, whether it's for corrupt reasons or you just fail to do something properly out of just negligence or incompetence, whatever the reason is, right? If your actions in some way compromised the history of the chain, you can get penalized for that. It's the whole idea of staking is you're rewarded for good behavior and you're punished for bad behavior. Okay, so now Ethereum can basically decide what bad behavior is from a social consensus layer, which is essentially what does the Ethereum community say to be implemented in the protocol. And if they decide that censorship is, not a part of the values, then they could penalize people for censoring transactions, which would put a real problem in our hands for a lot of the staking services, who have pressure to comply with sanctions, okay? If in fact we see that sanctions require censorship from node operators and validators themselves. So it'll be interesting to see what the outcome is of this. It'll be interesting to see what the response is from people who are providing staking as a service, okay, especially ones that operate in the United States, whether they feel the pressure to comply with these OFAC sanctions, okay, whether the OFAC sanctions themselves are going to see any type of repeal, okay, or if we're going to see, people continue to push for a censorship protocol level, and if we're going to see those people slashed, does that make some of these staking services viable anymore for the end user? It's a potential problem that the Ethereum community has to overcome. Okay, and there are ways of dealing with this, but it seems like anything, any path forward is likely to see some type of choppy waters ahead. Especially ahead of the Ethereum merge that's coming up really soon. Okay, we've already seen people talked about potentially delaying the merge. This being one of the factors. Of course, some other factors on the table. We're seeing, some scares from the ETH proof of work fork and all that type of stuff. But yeah, this is definitely something to watch out and pay attention for. So let me know in the live chat below. Let's see. What would you vote for from an Ethereum community perspective? Would you vote for censorship? Would you vote to slash and burn people who, essentially censor at the protocol level, or would you tolerate the censorship? See some X's in the chat. I don't see any Y's in the chat. Somebody says X, it's the whole point of crypto. Somebody says if on-chain it's acceptable, otherwise burn. So this is why we have to have law. So, the other thing is, if the Ethereum community were to tolerate censorship, it would be decentralized, right? So if we're to say like, hey, we agree that we should comply with sanctions, it's still social consensus that we do that type of thing. So yeah, at the end of the day, like there's still a vote, and it's even like not voting is still a vote, right? It's a vote to let whatever the majority who is going to vote, let them do what they decide. Okay, that's a vote in and of itself. Michael says easier said than done, but X, yeah, some of this stuff is tricky and complicated. Because you cannot stop people from dusting accounts. Yeah, totally. So we have seen this, and this, poses lots of questions in terms of the, sanctions have been placed. We've seen people basically, taking, because here's the thing about Tornado Cash is, like I said, you can deposit on one side and then draw from the other side. It's very hard to connect the two accounts. Okay, and some for most people, they're not going to be able to do it now. Some advanced blockchain analytics firms, have claimed to have cracked the code on basically how to identify Tornado Cash addresses. Okay, but you can withdraw to any address you want to. Okay, so we basically have seen people take Tornado Cash ETH and just send it directly to high profile wallets, like people who have ENS names attached to them. One of them being Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, founder CEO of Coinbase, major celebrities with .eth names. I think like Jimmy Fallon's on there, stuff like that, right? So are these people now liable underneath the sanctions? Okay, can you prove without a doubt that they didn't do it? Okay. You know what I mean? So it poses all these kinds of questions of like, is this even valid? You know what I mean? Is this? Because it always goes back to this, thing that we said here. What is not a sanctionable entity in the Tornado Cash case? What are the implications of the actual sanctions themselves? There's a lot of things that have to be answered here. Especially the deplatforming the developers from GitHub. Yeah, we definitely saw that. We've seen lots of censorship take place, of course, in the Web 2.0 world. We saw, GitHub accounts taken down of the GitHub organizations for Tornado Cash, and then basically GitHub accounts of people who contributed to Tornado Cash, the developer accounts just taken down, Discord's taken down. Lots of things just instantly like cut. So would this affect Solidity? Not necessarily, no. Especially the Tornado Cash source code is in Arctic Vault. Yeah, so basically they're saying, that GitHub has the Arctic Vault, essentially where they took, I forget what the criteria was, but it's basically public repositories. I think that had like active contributions or something like that. Whatever the criteria is, they took a lot of the code on GitHub and they basically archived it on like film strips or something like that. I can't remember what the exact medium was, but they put it in this like they like buried it into a mountain in like Arctic. I can't remember. It was one of the countries that extends into the Arctic Circle. But it's supposed to be like basically a way to preserve, humanity's inventions and, stuff like that. Like in case, I don't know, something bad ever happens. You know what I mean? So you could potentially like rebuild. I don't know what the whole actual justification for it was, but that's what kind of came to my mind when I saw this. I can't remember if that's what they said or not, but that was what I took away with. But anyways, the whole idea here is like, okay, if you can't have the code for it, well, you have it in your Arctic code vault. So like, are you now, responsible for this too? All right, so let's actually look at what GitHub says about their Arctic code vault, just so I remember exactly what it is. The archives. So basically, it's a data. That's terrible highlighting. A data repository preserved in the Arctic World Archive, a very long-term archival facility, 250 meters deep in the permafrost of an Arctic mountain. So the archive is located in a decommissioned coal mine in this archipelago. Svalbard, I guess I'm going to say that right, closer to the North Pole than the Arctic Circle. So GitHub captured a snapshot of every active public repository in 2020 and preserved that data in the Arctic Code Vault. So it's basically any public repository. And if you go to like if you look at I guess you don't see it on the organization, but like on my GitHub, I have the Arctic Code Vault contributor badge. Somebody says, what do next after learning Solidity language in order to become a successful blockchain developer? Because currently I'm a college student. So if you're still in college, and you're going to wait till you get out of college in order to get a job or do whatever you're going to do, the best thing to do is start building projects. So building a portfolio, okay, like actually creating a project for real in an unguided way so that you learn how to get those functional coding skills, and then put that project out there so other people can use it, put it into a website so other people can see it, demonstrate how it works. And if you're still in school, you could just keep doing that and then build up some pretty impressive blockchain skills until you're ready to start applying for jobs. And if you have a suite of portfolio projects that prove what you can do, that's going to be big. Someone says, can we not fork Tornado Cash, change the name, and just slightly change or improve the code? So, I mean, if you're an American, you're watching this channel, and you're a developer, I wouldn't, let's put it this way, like, I would definitely exercise caution because, you're probably going to be in some hot water for doing that. Is it too late to learn blockchain development? Absolutely not. All right, so that's all I got for today, everybody. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That really helps these videos out so more people learn about blockchain. And if you're as fascinated with this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? You can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you went to the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can show you how to master blockchain step-by-step start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.